art historian, and I'm Kirsten Algera. I started the magazine together with Ernst in 2015, and my background is probably a lot of things. I was a writer, art director, curator, so lots of things, and I used to think that that might be a problem, like doing a lot of things a little, but now I think it's perfect for making a magazine because there it all comes together.
I'm Ernst van der Hoeven, and I started off as an art historian as well, or I was an art historian, and then with a focus on architecture. And I worked and started and initiated a firm in Rotterdam called Crimson, with whom we did a lot of studies, sort of urban studies for the city. At that time, it was very uncommon to be an art historian and to work in the field in an urban field. So that was a sort of a new way of doing research. And later on, I became a landscape architect because in the time that I was working for Crimson, I worked a lot with landscape architects, and I thought, ooh, I want to sit on that side of the table. So I did a master in landscaping in Italy, in Milan, came back and started my own studio. And in that period, when I was doing commissions, I met Kirsten again, with whom I worked earlier. And the idea started for making a magazine.
On the side, Ernst made a magazine before called Club Danny, and I used to write some stuff for that magazine, but that wasn't a collaboration in a way. It was more like I was a contributor of Club Danny. Yeah.
But the good thing was that I knew Kirsten already, and Kirsten knew the magazine Club Danny. So when we were on a trip for another commission in Vietnam, we discussed a lot what would it be to have in that time, 2015, what was it, 2008? Yeah. It was not a logic moment to start a magazine because a lot of art magazines in the Netherlands just went bankrupt. There was no funding anymore. But for us, on that trip, we were so amazed by all the things that we saw that hold stories but were made by anonymous makers. We thought, why isn't there a platform for all these things that tell stories instead of all these big designers that we didn't believe in anymore?
Yeah, we both worked in the design world at that stage, and we were a bit uninspired by its obsession, you could say, with star designers and innovation and new stuff. Every Salone del Mobile had like new chairs and new couches, and we thought we're interested in design, but not in this way. We're interested in the stories that objects tell. So it's more about when design is in use that, the special stories come about. And so that was the very first starting point. Like, can we make some sort of a platform for the use of design and crafts?
And also beyond the new. For things that already are there, and also maybe about designers that are forgotten, that have done fantastic things, but they're just forgotten, overlooked maybe. And maybe if we dive into them again, and maybe if they're still alive, we could get them on the podium again. And that worked. It's good that you mention Appartamento, because I think the mentality behind it, I think, is very near to sort of the genuine feel that we want to communicate to the world. And I think what we liked very much about Appartamento, that it is, it's not the places you see are the real places. They're not the show-offs of design, but it's how people really live, and there's a very nice mixture there between also known and famous artists and designers, but also just amateurs that have a fantastic obsession for things or whatever, you know. And the interviews are also very direct, and I think that is also something that we not learned from Appartement, but we really liked in a way that sort of mentality.
Yeah, and then I think then there's also a big difference in the sense that I mean, the design world was our non-inspiration, but the other inspiration I think was Hitchcock, who invented the word MacGuffin. And we all know him, of course, as a world famous director. But he also was like a super storyteller. He was so amazing in telling stories, and for him, the MacGuffin, that's the object that puts the story in motion. So that was what we started with, and we thought we want to take one object and follow it, like Hitchcock sometimes follows an object in his movies. So that was the very first start of it, actually, the title MacGuffin and the way an object can lead you through the story.
And in discussions we had, because if you think about what was an example of a magazine, actually Nest by Joe Holzer, that was for us something that we both were really intrigued by, you know, because it was a quite odd magazine, a quarterly of interiors, made in a sort of by not an art director, not an editor, but really somebody who was more into the physics of art directing and not into the big storytelling behind it, but really the making of it, and the pleasure and the madness of every issue for us both was so tempting and so in many ways intriguing.
Yeah, I think that also maybe is a difference with Appartamento, and something that's more in line with how we were inspired by Nest, is that we always consider the magazine as a sort of portable exhibition, like something that you can keep and carry with you, an exhibition that is very diverse and has long reads and short reads and lots of visual essays as well. So yeah, in that sense also I think we try to find another voice for a magazine.
And also make something durable, like a collector's item. And that's but what happened with Nest is all these items became very valuable. You know, people wanted to have the whole collection complete. And when we started, of course, everybody was saying, you know, sacrifice all these trees again, you know, for yet another magazine. So then we thought it better has to be good, almost an object in itself that you want to hold and keep and caress and really want to collect, and maybe want also to have the whole series complete.
Yeah, I think like Ernst said, we knew from the start that we wanted to make an object, because it's about objects. So the very, very first sketches even were like, the magazine is an object. So I can show you the first issue. It's like a little bed, because it had the bed as a theme, so it had 2 pillows on it. And so that was something that we were looking for, and paper, of course, was an essential part of that. And we did lots of making dummies for the first issue with different paper qualities. And very soon we discovered that Arco Print Milk that we're printing on right now was like the perfect one, because it's thickening, so it's 1.5. It gives you the impression that it's really velvet-like, but also we like what it does to the ink and the colors. So yeah, that was a very conscious, very.
And it made also a nice contrast with the gloss, because we also were thinking if we make a magazine, that it's nice to also have a sort of a rhythm in paper, so that there is also another sort of tactility. And you know, if you have that very nice aqua print that is almost soft and absorbing, then it's nice to have something next to it that is confronting and it's more glossy and has another feel. So that tactility played a major role. Another thing that played a big role was, of course, the decision that who you make the magazine, the graphic designer. And we were very happy that in one of the first meetings that we had with Sandra Kassenaar, who in the end makes the magazines as a graphic designer, she came up with the idea to use Churchword, the font, the typeface. That is a handcrafted font, and that, of course, for us, made such a big difference. And then we immediately understood that she was the right person to join venture, because it was the right mentality.
I think in the beginning it was very easy, because the bed is like the piece of furniture that the first moment and the last moment of your life you spent in the bed. And then after that, because it was a piece of furniture, we thought, let's do a building element, the window, and then a material, the rope. But then from there, I think we didn't have an algorithm to lead us. It was like, what do we want to do? And most of the times, is there some sort of an inspirational source that we want to use? For example, for the sink, I remember that we were reading Italo Calvino, and he's got
Invisible Cities.
Invisible Cities. One of the cities is a city of pipes, and we were super interested by that, because we thought, okay, so there's a world beneath, and there's a world in between, a city of pipes. We must do something with the sink, because it's about kitchens, but it's also
and there's a nice
what is below.
Ambiguity in the sink, because it's a container, but it's also an intermedium, and it's also something that you can't grasp. It's what is under the sink. And so it had a sort of a darkness that we also liked.
I think this, ambiguity is something that we're looking for, like an object that has different functions and touches on different realms and has different characters and qualities, like the ball, for instance, but the trousers as well. And so, of course, the object is always important to look through its eyes to society, culture, politics. So it has to be an interesting view.
But it's always mundane, I think, and it's always something that we also like to surprise. After a furniture piece, it might feel logic that you have another furniture piece, because then it becomes sort of a theme-like thing. But then we always think, maybe a material next time could work as well. And the rope, I think, it was a great one, because it becomes an object by the things that you do with it. If you make a knot, it becomes a knot. It has so many vital sort of references that you could use. And maybe we end up with the color ones, or we have also thought about the palm tree. Okay, would that be an object? Out of the logic.
I think it went pretty fast, because I know that the first issue was sold out quite soon, and has been sold out since. We didn't reprint or something. Yeah,
we kickstarted it during the Salon des Meubles, which was quite a...
So that was a good thing as well. And I think from the start we were asked to do other activities as well on the side. So we made an exposition based on the sink in Milan, and from there we were asked to make an exhibition in Rotterdam in the Nieuwe Instituut. So it also became a sort of flywheel to do other activities, and I think that was really interesting as well for us, because it feeded the magazine, but it also could extend it a little bit, and
But it really helped, I think, that we had that MacGuffin-based installation during the Salon, which was a quite intriguing installation of bird nests, and we were able to have a whole table filled with bird nests, and people were looking at bird nests in the same way that we were. We were totally fascinated by the fact that you never look at the bird nest that precise. It's just something that you see as a given, but if you take it out of the context and you really look at it and you see how the differences are and the logic behind it, that some of the early breeders have nests that look like duvets. They're really stuffed with small feathers, and others have a clay base, and so that was something that, in that context of design, really made a big had a big impact on people.
I can still smell them.
Yeah,
I had to drive them
all these
illegally, partly across the Alps. Yeah. But it was a super nice exhibition, and I think it was a good way of showing how MacGuffin was about objects, design objects, but in an unusual way.
And the funny thing was, of course, that the whole thing to start a magazine was also a sort of an antidote for all the design world, and then we presented again in that mecca of design, you know. So it was quite sort of double in many ways, but it worked.
Well, yeah, we hope so, of course. At least I think for us it's really important to, like you say, have a look at the design world and sustainability and how you are living with objects, how these objects are made, how they're used, what the context is of their making, but also their further life. So yeah, that's super. But also maybe in a broader way even, that objects are a way of telling stories, critical stories about what's going on in the world, which is not all that good, of course. And I think also the third thing is that we were really interested in non-Eurocentric stories as well. You know, so what about these objects in other parts of the world? How are they used?
And the sharing of knowledge, I think, is an important part. Like Enzo Mari, who gives his designs for free. You know, you can just, whenever, if you are good in making things yourself, you can just make all the Enzo Mari furniture, because he gives the tutorials of that for free. And I really like that democratic feel of design. You know, that you could enable other people to think about how you make things like that. And he really taught his students always, it's best to start remaking things that are already there, because then you get in that logic, and you can always define your own things later.
Well, the good thing about it, I think, is that we get some grants of Creative Industry Fund and Prins Bernhard Cultuur Fund, is that it gives us the opportunity to do research. Because we're published once in 6 months, I think we're taking like 3 months of research, which is a long time and which we absolutely need. We do a lot of writing ourselves as well. So yeah, we're so happy with that, because it gives us just the opportunity to dive into things. And the other thing is that there's no specific subsidy for magazines in the Netherlands. So
which used to be the case.
It used to be the case, but it isn't anymore. So we can apply for costs of other projects. So we're doing podcasts on the side, for instance, or we just started with that. But also we're making exhibitions, doing field clubs, lots of stuff. So yeah, we're super, super lucky, of course, that we're living in a country that still has some of these subsidies, even though it's not specifically for magazines. Yeah. Oh, I know it exactly, because I grew up, like Ernst, by the way, in the north of the Netherlands. And I lived in a small village where there were no shops, and I had to bike to Groningen, which was the main city there. It was like 25 kilometers. And I went on my bike to buy Vinyl, which was a New Wave magazine, designed by Max Kisman, who you might know. He's a Dutch graphic designer. And it was like, in content, it was a super interesting magazine. And also Max, I think he used to make a new identity for every issue. So every, I don't know how many weeks, 2 weeks or something, 4 weeks, there was a completely new design. And it was pre-computer, but he did stuff like it was made on a computer. And yeah, that was my childhood magazine. I even wrote something for their, I don't know how many anniversary they're gone now, of course, but yeah, it was the idea of the Netherlands, I think. Yeah.
It was a magazine my mother was subscribed to, and it came from France, and my mother doesn't speak one word French, so she doesn't read it either. It was Mille et un idées, and it was a fantastic magazine about all kinds of crafts, and also about gardening and about cooking and about knitting and about everything that in the 70s was made my mother's life happy, and it was very genuinely shot. So I think if you compare it to the Appartemento, there's a lot of things in common. And I think even later they become a Dutch version of it, but the original French version was really fantastic. There were always this beautiful photo reportages in gardens and parties and beer making and wine making, and it was something very contagious to see and to look at. And there was another magazine that an old friend of my mother who lived in New York always brought home to us, and it was the New Yorker. And the New Yorker had this fantastic characters, beautiful what's the name? This hand-drawn covers. And at one certain time, my mother took all the covers and she made a sort of a collage out of it in our toilet. And I helped her with that. So that was something that I thought, well, it's important to have a good cover.